Good morning, Brian Wood coming to you from Alphen Insurance Agency, located at the home office here in Mount Olive, North Carolina. Today on this video edition of In the Loop, we're going to talk about pasture, rangeland, and forage insurance known as PRF, or referred to often as a rainfall index policy. How PRF works. There's over 9,000 NOAA weather stations measuring rainfall daily. Base values are set per acre for grazing and for haying. In this example, we'll talk about a value set at $10 on a grazing policy allows you to buy up to 150% or $15 an acre, or as little as 60% of the base value. Same would go for a haying policy. Your rainfall index is broken up into grids based off latitude and longitude lines, 12 mile by 17 mile grids. This makes it an area revenue based type policy. When you get into the policy, you pick a minimum of two-month coverage intervals, but you can't double dip on the same month, meaning you can't pick January and February and March. February would be in both months, allowing you to double dip in the event there was an indemnity paid in each month. You pick at least two-month intervals that you choose with a maximum of 50 to 70% depending on your count of intervals. For better risk management practices, if you spread your intervals over multiple intervals, instead of dumping all your risk into two intervals at 50% each, you stand a better chance of spreading your risk out over the policy. When we go in and look at the USDA RMA tool, you would go to this website listed here at the top of the slide, and you would enter in your address. For this one, I entered in an address in Rayford, North Carolina. Once you enter the address, it gives you a grid identification number that everything will refer to in this 12 by 17 mile grid when we look at doing historical indexes, decision support, and estimated indemnities. Now that you see this grid identification here, what I did is went in and picked out a 10-year interval that ended last year on a historic index value. You can spread this thing back out all the way to 1948, but I did a 10-year value, and we found much success in looking at a 10-year and looking at a 5-year to identify new trends in weather. And that's something that we would work with each of you on for your individual farm when helping you decide which intervals to pick for your policy. When you look at February, March, April, September, October, November, I just went in and highlighted some areas that tend to be historically below an even 100. Anything above 100 is showing where you're getting excessive rainfall. Anything below 100 shows where you're in a deficit and potentially going to get an indemnity payment there. And you'll notice some of these are changing over time. These were pretty heavy right here, and now they're going low, showing a deficit. We're seeing that trend in a lot of North Carolina right now. September, October, March, and April being good intervals to select in many places. Once you do that, you go over to the next tab on the website there, and you would pick, to start with, we'll do the example of grazing. It allows you to buy up to 90% coverage level and productivity factor up to 150%, which is to your advantage to change that from 100 to 150%. Shows you the county-based value that was given there, and based off your productivity factor coverage level, it's going to give you $71.42 coverage per acre on this type policy here. For example purposes, we put 50% of our risk in February, March. We put 50% in September to October. When this thing calculated out based off a 2021 sample year, the premium that the producer would pay would be $4 an acre. Estimated indemnity of that year was $12.97. If you'll back up in here, you'll see that this is pretty heavily subsidized. Total premium of $9.53, with the subsidy being $4.86. allowing the producer to only pay $4. Pretty good return on investment. When you look at the estimated indemnities over this 10-year range that we talked about, the February-March had a 5 out of 10-year indemnity payment. August to September had a 4 out of 10-year indemnity payment. When you look at grazing here, we're going to break it down and go into breaking our intervals into 3 intervals here: February, March, May, June, September, October. You'll see I did 33.3 in 2 of these, 33.4 in the third one. Has to come up to an even 100.0. When you look at that on this sample year of 2021, your producer premium ended up at $5 an acre, at $8.67 being the estimated indemnity of that year, which was pretty good. We'll look at the estimated indemnities on this same example where we had 3 intervals over a 10-year period. You look at the February, March, there were 5 out of 10 years payments. May and June, only 1 out of 10. When you look at September and October, 4 out of 10 years we had an indemnity payment. So now we're going to switch things over to a haying example where if you were producing hay, you have to make some changes over here on the left on the tool here. You would select haying and irrigated or non-irrigated. In this example, we're going to go with irrigated. Coverage level, maximum 90%. Productivity factor, again, go up to that 150. This gives your county-based value of hay per acre and your dollar of protection here, looking at our coverage level and productivity factor. In this example, we decided to use 2 intervals, again, March and April and September, October, came up with a produced premium of $22, estimated indemnity of $143.45. You'll notice that these are quite a bit higher than what the grazing examples were, but if you also look at the county-based value, is much higher than what it was for grazing, thus you have a higher premium involved. You'll notice it's also heavily subsidized, just like the grazing policy was. When you look at the estimated indemnities over 10 years, 5 out of 10 on March, April, 4 out of 10 on September, October. You'll notice there's a correlation whether you choose haying or grazing. If you're using the same intervals, you're going to get the same results out of number of years an indemnity would be paid. Here in haying support, example number 2, again, we had to check, make sure everything's right over here. Haying, non-irrigated, 90% coverage, which is the max, 150% productivity, which they allow, gives your county-based value, and then your protection based off your coverage level and productivity factor. Here we did the intervals the same, 33.3, 33.3, 33.4, since you have to get to an even 100%. This one you'll notice the premium's $20 an acre, estimated indemnity at $95.66, a little bit less than the prior one. You're putting that third interval in there. It paid out very good when you look at the 10-year example. The 1 year it did is a $27 an acre payment. But you look over time, March, April, 5 out of 10, September, October, 4 out of 10, which is going to vary depending on your grid and depending on which interval months you pick. Something about this, for the grazing policy, you would have to be able to show proof that you had livestock, that you had cattle grazing on this land. That can be with purchase history, as well as sales history. If you sold some calves and then you had an interval payoff and you went through an audit, if you showed that you own those number of livestock at the time that they were actually on the farm, vet records, vaccination, work from a veterinarian, mineral records, those type things help identify that you did own cattle at this time. Pretty complex policy, very neat policy. We'd love to work with you on getting a quote for your farm. And once again, thank you for joining in today to this video edition of In the Loop. And we thank you for trusting Auburn Insurance Agency with all of your livestock and crop insurance needs. give us a call. We'll come to you so you can focus on family and farming. And remember, we are an equal opportunity provider, and we always suggest that you refer to RMA website and crop insurance handbooks for the latest and most up-to-date information, or give us a call and we'll look that up for you. Thank you.